but it was just so, whatever word would be to describe this, that's what it was. Hi, hello, and welcome to another episode of the Cozy Little Book Club. I'm your host, Taylor, and I'm so excited to be talking to you about this book today. Today, we're taking you on a journey through a portal through the real world and the subconscious. The book we're talking about today is, drumroll please, I don't really have any place to, Kafka on the Shore by Haruki Murakami. Let me just say that I've been trying to do this book review for so long. It took me so long to read this book. I would say 7 months. I had to be the only person checking this book out from the library because I would check it out, max out all the checkouts, check it back in, check it back out, check it back in, check it out. This is my last time. So I'm really happy, not only just to share this book with you all, but because it is a feat that I conquered and finished this book. So yay me. And today I'm outside. I'm on a little bit of a mini vacation, and I felt like because this book is so whimsical and otherworldly, it just made sense to be outside and enjoy this good sun, even though we're in fall officially, but it's still very hot where we are and the sun is shining. It's so pretty outside. Boo is walking around enjoying the sun himself. So yeah, let's just get into the book. So before we get into the book, I did want to show you that I do have the physical book because I literally finished reading it a few hours ago. And I'm very happy. So this is the book. I thought it was just pretty and blue. It reminds me of the sky. There's a cat. We already know how I feel about cats. I was excited. So yeah, let's get into the book. You could just hear the leaves rustling. Boo's chilling with his belly out. We're living our best lives out here. So the story starts off with a boy who goes by the name of Kafka. Kafka is a 15-year-old boy who decides to run away from his home in Tokyo to escape not only his wretched father, but the prophecy that he's laid out before him. The prophecy says that Kafka will kill his father and then sleep with his mother and his sister. I would also run away from that prophecy if I were him. It's a crazy prophecy. And that is really just like the tip of the iceberg for all the things that follow in this story. So not only is he trying to outrun his father, but he's also trying to run away from his supposed fate. He's also on a personal mission, a search for his mother and his sister who left him when he was 4 years old and left him to be alone with his terrible father. In another small town, there is a 60-something-year-old man by the name of Nakata, who isn't that bright. And what I mean by that is when he was a child during World War II, he and his classmates all of a sudden collapsed in this field while they were playing. Every one of his classmates woke up seemingly normal. Nothing had affected them. They were all pretty much regular. In fact, most of them forgot that they had even collapsed. Everyone except for Nakata came back and woke up to being normal. But for him, he not only lost his memories, but he also lost the ability to read and write, which is a big deal. Going throughout your life, not being able to understand things, whether it be reading or writing, but also just not being able to pick up on social cues. His whole personality changed. He was a very bright student, but after that he had a hard time pretty much navigating by himself, but he was able to make it. I mean, he was 60-something when we meet him. As you can imagine, this led to a very interesting life for Nakata. With his disability, he does get a subsidy from the government, but to also supplement his finances, he also helps locals find their missing cats. I don't know why. That makes me so happy. It's very cute. Some little old man walking around, finding people's cats. I think that's cute. And the reason he's so good at this is because he can speak to cats. Cats can speak to Nagita. They have a conversation. The conversation that I be thinking I'm having with Boo, he can actually have a conversation. The cats are talking to him. He's responding. They have an understanding. It's just very cute. His ability to speak to cats is kind of like not really a fair trade-off, but a trade-off nonetheless for him not being able to read or write. So these two people are very different, but just bear with me because they connect in some kind of way. So back to Kafka. Kafka actually finds himself being able to live in a library, which is something he actually manifested on his train ride from Tokyo to Takamatsu. These words, these names are very beautiful, but they are kind of hard for me to pronounce correctly. So if I am butchering them, I do apologize to the wonderful people of Japan. Forgive me. Anyway, there he meets Oshima, who is a very important character to the story and is a big helper at the library. And he also meets Miss Seiki, another important character who is the head librarian for this memorial library that Kafka has found himself a home in. From there, Oshima turns out to be a big guide and almost like a big brother kind of figure to Kafka as he helps him navigate through this really peculiar part of his life. Oshima also helps Kafka navigate some of the predicaments he finds himself in and some other things that he finds himself in. You know, 15-year-old boys just getting in shit. So Oshima's really like a big help for him. I almost forgot that Kafka actually meets someone on the train ride from Tokyo to Takamatsu. He meets a young woman by the name of Sakura. She actually kind of ends up being very helpful to him when he finds himself in a bind. And he thinks that she could be his long-lost sister that he's been on the search for. They kind of have an interesting relationship. Meanwhile, Nagita finds himself in his own sticky situation while trying to find a family's lost cat. With the help of his feline friends, he gets a lead on a man who happens to be snatching cats left and right and then torturing and killing them. It's my least favorite part of the book. I hated reading about this guy. Desperate to save the family's cat, he follows the tips that then lead him to the man who is directly involved and responsible for these senseless killings. In order to stop the madman, Nagita is faced with a pretty heavy decision and has to do something he's never done before. Something completely out of his character. From there, he's on a mission, and that honestly leads him to meet some very unlikely characters along the way. Anyway, these two people are on such different spectrums of life. You know, you have a young boy who can read, who can write, who is determined to be the world's toughest 15-year-old because he's running away and he's going to have to learn some things and, you know, just trying to escape this prophecy, whereas this 60-something-year-old man has no real destiny, I guess. He's just kind of there, but then he does get taken away but then he does get wrapped up in something that lends to him having his own kind of adventure. They're just so completely different from their location, from their age, from, you know, how they grew up and stuff like that. They're just completely different, but somehow they kind of meet in the middle. Boo! But somehow, you can see Boo. He's being so bad. But somehow, these two very different people end up being more connected and intertwined than you may have ever thought. I'm sure that they even thought. This is probably one of the worst summaries I've ever given because this book is so whimsical and out there and ethereal that it really peters between what's real and what's fantasy, or not fantasy, but like I said, subconscious. So there's so much that I can't say without giving away a lot. So it's just kind of, you just have to bear with me and trust me on this. Just trust me, daddy. But I will say that the themes of this book are fate and free will, memory and identity, and loneliness and interconnectedness. So these are the things that I did and didn't like about this book. Part of the reason that I even picked up this book was because of the name. I've always been interested in Franz Kafka since I was in high school. Not super obsessed with him, but one story of his really stuck out to me, The Metamorphosis. I won't get into it, but it's a pretty trippy book, and it's lasted me all from AP Lit to me being an adult, so I always think about it every now and then. So anyway, needless to say, the book being called Kafka on the Shore, I was wondering if there had any parallels, and I can't say that they do, because I can't say that I've read a whole bunch of Franz Kafka, but I was interested in that. That mixed with the metaphysics of it, plus talking cats, this book was made for me. It was made for me, so it just made sense. So one of the things that I say really stood out to me the most is that Haruki Murakami has a beautiful writing style. So pretty. I said beautiful a lot in a lot of other videos, but this truly is pretty. Like, I don't know if I could imagine how he wrote it, just like delicately. I don't know if that even makes sense, but I really felt like I was watching a movie as I was reading this. It's just so delicate and pretty. I don't know how else to explain it. It's just very pretty writing, pretty style of writing. Elegant, delicate, just, I don't know. And I think also with it being like a blue book cover, I don't know, it's just giving soft and nice and just pretty. I don't know. This was my first Murakami book, and honestly I'm glad, because it was not only beautiful, but it was silly in a bunch of ways. It was beautiful and tragic in other ways. And it was also very dramatic, but not dramatic in a way that's like, ugh, okay, like you're being so extra. But it was more like, damn, this is intense, but in a good way, if that makes sense. I really am not really good at trying to put this into words, because it's just so frilly. Though it feels like you're in a dream when you're reading this. It feels like you're reading a dream and you're in a dream. That's all I can really say. I don't really know how to explain it further than that. I really felt like I was in a dream while reading this, and I've never had a book make me feel like that. It was a very personal feeling while reading this. And I hope it doesn't sound like super dramatic, because it wasn't. That's not my intention, but it was just so, whatever word would be to describe this, that's what it was. There were a lot of emotions in this book. Sadness, anger, rage, happiness, joy, simplicity. I don't know if that's an emotion, but you know, contentment, being content. And I just think that of all these emotions, I really feel like Murakami did a really good job of capturing the essence of sadness. I know that sounds so depressing, but he did a really good job of that. So one of the characters that I mentioned earlier, the head librarian, Miss Seiki, she was chronically sad. And you want to talk about sad boys club? She's the sad girls club in herself. So many events in her life caused her to be this way, for sure. But she was just so sad. And that really affected her the rest of her life. Kafka was sad because he really felt as if no one really cared about him. And he also carried resentment, anger, rage towards his mother for abandoning him. And what I just tell y'all about people who hate their parents and how they act on it. Amen, boo. Kafka was sad because he felt like no one cared about him. He thought that when he left, no one would care. His dad wouldn't care. No one cared about him. And he also felt sadness and rage and abandoned, because his mom abandoned him, and didn't have an explanation, just kind of snuck out without him and took his sister. So he had a lot of resentment towards her and his father for this weird prophecy that he put on him. So what I just tell y'all about people who have and harbor resentment towards their families, their parents specifically, and how that plays out. What I tell y'all. Okay? And even Nakata, when you read about him, you kind of think he's kind of like happy-go-lucky because there are no thoughts in his head, and he's just kind of, this is my life, I'm okay with it. He's very, I wouldn't even say positive, he's just kind of matter of fact that it kind of ends up being positive. But in his own way, he dealt with loneliness. He never had any real friends. He couldn't pick up on social cues. He never had a lover, never had a girlfriend, never had his siblings didn't really talk to him very much. So he only had the cats as his friends. And that's so sad. You know, we are social humans. Human beings are social creatures. Like, yes, we interact with the animals around us. These birds have been talking to me while I've been outside, okay? Talking to me and Boo. But, you know, just not being able to have those emotional ties to humans and people who can relate to you in that way. Because them cats that he was talking to, they wasn't always trying to talk to him for a long time. You know what I'm saying? Because he didn't have very deep conversations. Because he couldn't get it. And that wasn't his fault, you know, whatever that accident that happened to him. But it was really interesting. And all of those sad people and those sad circumstances, it was obviously very sad, but it was just done so eloquently. And the people who ended up being close to and around them gave them such grace. And I thought that was, here goes my favorite word, beautiful. Because I thought it was very kind, and it really shows that you can find allies and friends in the most maybe unlikely situations. And I thought that was really sweet. This book was so sad in some parts, not the whole thing. The whole book is not like a depression book. It was incredibly sad, but it was elegantly done. I imagined listening to very sad violin string music while reading this book. I just felt like if there was a soundtrack, a lot of it would be lots of wind instruments like flutes, but mostly a lot of strings, a lot of violin, maybe a little bit of bass because it's sad and it's slow, but classical music nonetheless, but very particularly string and flute. String, flute, piccolo maybe. Actually, I played all of those instruments at one point. The violin, the flute, and the piccolo. That's crazy. Anyway, while they dealt with all these tough things, the people that were around them really supported them and gave them grace to navigate these super intense feelings. And I thought that it was a real testament to how when you need help, more often than not, people are going to help you. And more people are kind than we think. And I think that that was really sweet. And of course, very beautiful. I would say that that was for sure one of my favorite parts of the book. Okay, that and the snarky ass cats. There were some very sassy cats in this book. When they were talking to Nakata, when they were talking to Mr. Hoshino, which I didn't really bring him up because he's a part of Nakata's story arc, but I didn't want to get too heavily in the woods with him because a big story aspect. But anyway, there were some snarky cats, okay? Which is, like, who was surprised by that? Cats being snarky, like, mind-blowing, you know? Some of them were silly, some of them were sly, some of them were mysterious, and some of them were just assholes. Very snooty, uppity. And they were talking hella shit, just like Boo was talking right now. They were talking hella shit, and they were also being very matter of fact, but they were always very helpful to Mr. Nakata. In fact, one of the cats even said, cats know everything, not like dogs. I know it kind of sounds like I probably just be like shitting on dogs. I don't. Like, I'm literally, there's like a dog in the house who I love. I love a lot of dogs, but yeah. But But them cats was like, they not like us. They not like us. But for real, they're not. They were saying that. But one day I'm gonna read a dog-heavy book. I promise. Okay, so some of the things that I didn't like, I can't really even get into it because they are such huge story points of the plot, and I can't give away a lot of it. But some were disturbing, so I'm gonna just ominously leave that for you. You heard him. He knew it was weird. So mind you, there wasn't a lot that I didn't like. But sometimes it was a bit too ethereal and too otherworldly. It really blurred a lot of lines. You really didn't know what was real, what was fake, what was in his mind, what was in their mind. Did this actually happen? Who's doing what to who? Are they related? There's just a lot of confusion. And I know that I said that about another book a couple episodes back about not knowing what's happening with other people, because there were, in that book particularly, there were lies that they were trying to uncover. But with this book, it was really just, again, the blurring between, is this real? Is this theory? Is this real life? Am I dreaming? Am I sleeping? Like, it was just, am I awake? Am I lucid? There were so many aspects to that made it sometimes very confusing. Like, even the ending of the book was just kind of open-ended. I wouldn't say that it was my favorite ending of a book, but it wasn't terrible either, because I was still satisfied even though I had a few questions. But I did a lot of research and I went on Reddit. Everybody was confused, by the way, but it was still like, everybody still like loved the book, and me included. It was just kind of confusing because you didn't know what was real or what was right. And honestly, that was a little bit troubling to me, but also a little bit liberating. Just kind of going with the flow of not really knowing what's going on, but still kind of ending up on the right track, going in the right direction. So, yeah. And I know I touched on one of the themes being free will and fate. This is a tricky conversation to have because I know a lot of people feel like things are predetermined and that's just what's going to happen, and you can maybe think that it's your free will and it's not, whereas other people think like, oh, you have the free will to do whatever you want, you can determine your life, and I fully believe in that more of it. And so it was just really interesting because Kafka was really trying to take grab of his destiny and not fulfill the prophecy that his dad laid out before him. And I think I would just leave it at that because you really have to read it. If I give you what happened, obviously the book is done. The book is done. I ruined it. And I don't want to do that. I can just say, I'll leave you with this. This book really does blur a lot of lines, and you'll just have to read and pick which side of the line you stand on for yourself. Okay, so even though this book took me freaking forever to finish it, and honestly forgot what happened plenty of times whenever I did come and finally pick up the book, I will give this book a 5 out of 5 golden bookmarks. Like I said, it was really hard to give a book summary of this, but it was just such a beautifully written, delicate piece of... Honestly, I feel like this book is kind of like artwork. You just have to appreciate it in its own way and interpret it in your own way. Actually, that's exactly what I would say. This book is a piece of work, a piece of art. A piece of art, a piece of work, whatever, however you want to say it. It really is left up into your own interpretation, and and I kind of like that. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love a full, complete, we all understand what happened, but I think for this book and the way it was written, I think it was very masterfully done. So, shout out to Haruki Murakami. He's that boy. As I said, this is my first Murakami book, and as I've heard that he's really in his whimsical bag, so I'm really excited to read pretty much any of his other books. Anyway, that wraps up another episode of the Cozy Little Book Club. Thank you so much for joining. If you've made it to the end, please leave a little stack of books emoji or any other emoji that you see fit. And if you've read this book or any other Haruki Murakami books, please let me know and let's talk about it. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the post notifications so that you know each week when Boo and I drop a new episode. And don't forget to follow us on all socials at Cozy Little Book Club. It's my little puppy friend. His name's Princeton. Why do you look like that? Look at your little face. Thanks again for tuning in. You're so cute. Thanks again for tuning in. I hope y'all have a lovely day. And remember, when you open a book, you open your mind. Until next time, peace. And you know what? Go touch some grass today and enjoy nature. Peace. I'm very itchy. I need to hurry up. These bugs tear my ass up. Oh yeah, I almost forgot that while on the train to Takamatsu, Kafka, there's so many vowels in these words and like hard, you know? Okay.